What if aging was optional? What if the decline we've accepted as inevitable was actually a treatable condition? Welcome to the Convergence series, where today we're exploring the cutting-edge science of longevity through 3 groundbreaking books that together paint a revolutionary picture of how we might extend not just our lifespan, but our health span. For centuries, humans have accepted aging as an unavoidable fate. But a new generation of scientists is challenging this assumption. They're discovering that the biological processes behind aging can be slowed, halted, and potentially even reversed. Today, we'll connect 3 essential perspectives on longevity: David Sinclair's genetic approach in Lifespan, Dr. Stephen Gundry's focus on gut health in The Longevity Paradox, and Matthew Walker's critical insights on sleep in Why We Sleep. Together, these works create a comprehensive blueprint for understanding and potentially mastering the biology of aging. By the end of this hour, you'll understand why some researchers now consider aging a disease rather than destiny, and how this paradigm shift could transform human existence within our lifetimes. Part 1. The books and their authors. Let's begin by meeting the brilliant minds behind these groundbreaking works. David Sinclair, author of Lifespan, Why We Age and Why We Don't Have to, is a professor of genetics at Harvard Medical School and one of Time magazine's 100 most influential people. Sinclair's own research has identified several key mechanisms of aging, particularly focusing on a group of genes called sirtuins and a molecule called NAD+ that diminishes as we age. Dr. Stephen Gundry brings a different perspective in The Longevity Paradox. As a former cardiac surgeon who performed thousands of heart surgeries before pivoting to preventative medicine, Gundry approaches longevity through the lens of our gut microbiome. His controversial but compelling thesis is that many modern diseases result from the wrong bacteria dominating our digestive system. And finally, Matthew Walker, a professor of neuroscience at UC Berkeley, provides the missing piece in Why We Sleep. Walker demonstrates through rigorous research that quality sleep isn't a luxury but a non-negotiable biological necessity for longevity. His work reveals how chronic sleep deprivation accelerates aging across virtually every biological system. While these authors approach longevity from different angles, their conclusions are remarkably complementary, creating a multidimensional understanding of how we might extend healthy human lifespan. Part 2. David Sinclair's Lifespan, Aging as a Treatable Condition. Sinclair's central premise is revolutionary yet simple. Aging is not inevitable. It's a disease that can be treated. According to Sinclair, aging results primarily from a loss of epigenetic information. Think of your DNA as hardware; it remains relatively consistent throughout your life. But your epigenome is like software; it tells your genes when to turn on and off. As we age, this software becomes corrupted, causing cells to lose their identity and function. Sinclair introduces us to his information theory of aging, which proposes that this epigenetic degradation is the primary cause of aging. This corruption happens when our DNA repair systems activate in response to damage, temporarily shutting down the epigenetic regulators to perform repairs, but sometimes failing to turn them back on correctly. What makes Sinclair's work so groundbreaking is that his lab has demonstrated this process can be reversed. In one remarkable experiment, they restored vision in aging mice by reprogramming cells in their eyes, effectively making old cells young again. They accomplished this using Yamanaka factors, a set of 4 genes that can reset cellular age. Sinclair identifies several key longevity pathways, particularly focusing on sirtuins, proteins that regulate cellular health and are activated when we experience certain types of stress. This reveals the surprising paradox at the heart of longevity science. Mild stress at the cellular level actually promotes longevity. This explains why practices like intermittent fasting, exercise, and exposure to hot and cold temperatures extend lifespan in numerous studies. These hormetic stressors activate survival pathways that not only help us overcome immediate challenges but also fortify us against the ravages of time. Another crucial molecule in Sinclair's framework is NAD+, a coenzyme that activates sirtuins and declines steadily as we age. His research suggests that restoring NAD+ levels might be one key to extending healthy lifespan. But perhaps most profound is Sinclair's philosophical argument. He challenges us to reconceptualize aging itself. If we view aging as a disease rather than a natural process, we open the door to treating it, and potentially eliminating much of the suffering associated with our final decades. Part 3. Drive. Stephen Gundry's The Longevity Paradox, The Gut Connection. While Sinclair focuses on our genes, Dr. Gundry directs our attention to the trillions of microorganisms living in our digestive tract. His thesis in The Longevity Paradox is that the composition of our gut microbiome may be the most powerful determinant of how well and how long we live. Gundry begins with a provocative idea. Many of our modern diseases stem from a disrupted relationship with the bacteria that have evolved alongside us for millennia. These ancestral microbes help digest our food, regulate our immune systems, produce essential nutrients, and even influence our mood and cognitive function. The paradox Gundry identifies is surprising. Many commonly recommended, healthy, foods may actually promote premature aging by disrupting our gut microbiome. He specifically targets lectins, proteins found in many plants, especially grains, legumes, and certain vegetables, as potential culprits that can trigger inflammation and autoimmune responses in susceptible individuals. Gundry introduces us to the concept of the holobiome, the idea that we should view ourselves not as singular organisms but as complex ecosystems. Our gut bacteria communicate with virtually every system in our body through signaling molecules, influencing everything from cardiovascular health to brain function. One of Gundry's most important contributions is highlighting how our gut bacteria can either protect or damage our intestinal barrier. When this barrier becomes permeable, a condition colloquially known as leaky gut, it allows bacterial fragments, food particles, and toxins to enter our bloodstream, triggering systemic inflammation that accelerates aging. According to Gundry, the longest-lived populations in the world share certain dietary patterns that nurture beneficial gut bacteria. These diets are typically rich in polyphenols, plant compounds found in colorful fruits, vegetables, extra virgin olive oil, dark chocolate, and red wine, which feed beneficial bacteria while inhibiting harmful ones. Perhaps most controversial is Gundry's suggestion that we should limit our eating window and occasionally practice prolonged fasting. He argues that periodic food restriction gives our gut bacteria a chance to clean house, eliminating pathogenic species and strengthening beneficial ones. Gundry also emphasizes the importance of prebiotic fiber, which serves as food for beneficial bacteria. But he challenges conventional wisdom by suggesting that excessive fiber consumption from certain sources may actually harm gut health in some individuals. Throughout his work, Gundry repeatedly returns to one core principle. Longevity depends not on eliminating all microbes, but on cultivating the right microbial partners that have co-evolved with humans for millennia. Part 4. Matthew Walker's Why We Sleep. The restoration theory. If Sinclair gives us the genetic keys to longevity and Gundry provides the nutritional blueprint, Matthew Walker completes the picture with the critical but often overlooked role of sleep in extending healthy lifespan. In Why We Sleep, Walker makes an evidence-based case that sleep is the foundation upon which optimal health and longevity rest. Through decades of research, he demonstrates that every major physiological system benefits from proper sleep, and suffers dramatically without it. Walker challenges our cultural dismissal of sleep as unnecessary downtime with a wealth of scientific evidence. Sleep, he shows, is not a passive state but an active process during which our bodies perform essential maintenance and restorative functions that cannot occur during wakefulness. One of Walker's most alarming findings relates to how even modest sleep deprivation impacts our health. Just 1 week of sleeping less than 6 hours per night disrupts blood sugar control so profoundly that a young, healthy adult can be temporarily classified as pre-diabetic. This has profound implications for aging, as metabolic dysfunction accelerates virtually all aspects of cellular deterioration. Walker reveals how sleep directly relates to the mechanisms described by both Sinclair and Gundry. During deep sleep, the brain activates a remarkable cleansing system called the glymphatic system, which clears away metabolic waste, including the beta-amyloid proteins associated with Alzheimer's disease. Without sufficient deep sleep, these toxins accumulate, accelerating brain aging. Sleep also profoundly affects the gut microbiome that Gundry emphasizes. Studies show that disrupted sleep alters the balance of gut bacteria, promoting inflammatory species while suppressing beneficial ones. This creates a vicious cycle, as gut dysbiosis further disrupts sleep quality. Perhaps most relevant to Sinclair's genetic focus, Walker demonstrates that inadequate sleep damages our DNA and impairs repair mechanisms. A single night of 4 hours sleep triggers measurable DNA damage in participants. Additionally, sleep loss reduces telomere length, the protective caps on our chromosomes that shrink with age, effectively accelerating biological aging. Walker also highlights the essential role of REM sleep in emotional processing and cognitive function. Without sufficient REM sleep, our emotional regulation suffers, stress increases, and learning is impaired, all factors that contribute to accelerated aging. Most concerning is Walker's finding that chronic sleep restriction, getting less than 7 hours per night, is associated with a 12% increased risk of all-cause mortality. This makes insufficient sleep a greater mortality risk than excessive alcohol consumption or physical inactivity. The good news is that sleep, unlike many other health interventions, costs nothing and requires no special equipment. Walker provides evidence-based recommendations for improving sleep quality, many of which align perfectly with the advice from Sinclair and Gundry. Part 5. The convergence. Where these theories intersect. What makes these 3 books so powerful together is how they independently arrived at overlapping conclusions through entirely different fields of research. Let's explore these remarkable convergence points. First, all 3 authors highlight the critical role of circadian rhythms in health and longevity. Sinclair describes how sirtuins help maintain these rhythms and how their disruption accelerates aging. Gundry notes that our gut bacteria follow circadian patterns that influence digestion, immunity, and metabolism. And Walker demonstrates how misalignment with our natural sleep-wake cycle damages virtually every biological system. Second, they all identify chronic inflammation as a central driver of aging. Sinclair shows how epigenetic changes trigger inflammatory pathways. Gundry links inflammation to gut permeability and harmful bacteria. Walker reveals how sleep deprivation activates inflammatory markers throughout the body. Third, each author emphasizes metabolic health. Sinclair discusses how metabolic function declines with age as NAD+ diminishes. Gundry focuses on how gut bacteria influence insulin sensitivity and metabolic rate. Walker shows how even minor sleep disruption immediately impairs glucose metabolism. Fourth, they converge on the importance of hormesis, beneficial stress, for longevity. Sinclair explicitly recommends intermittent challenges like fasting and temperature exposure to activate longevity pathways. Gundry suggests similar practices to strengthen beneficial gut bacteria. Walker adds that proper sleep enhances our resilience to stress, while chronic sleep deprivation erodes it. Fifth, all 3 identify mitochondrial health as crucial for longevity. Mitochondria, the powerhouses of our cells, become less efficient with age. Sinclair details how declining NAD+ impairs mitochondrial function. Gundry explains how certain gut metabolites directly influence mitochondrial efficiency. Walker demonstrates that sleep deprivation dramatically reduces mitochondrial activity, particularly in the brain. Finally, they all emphasize autophagy, the cellular cleaning process that removes damaged proteins and organelles. Sinclair shows how sirtuins regulate autophagy. Gundry demonstrates how certain dietary practices enhance this cellular recycling system. Walker reveals that deep sleep is a primary time for autophagy in the brain. These convergence points create a compelling unified theory of aging. Our modern environment disrupts ancient biological systems, from our epigenome to our gut microbiome to our sleep, accelerating the aging process. But by understanding and addressing these disruptions, we might substantially extend both lifespan and health span. Part 6. Practical implications. The longevity blueprint. Having explored the theoretical convergence of these three perspectives, let's distill their insights into practical recommendations. If we synthesize the advice from Sinclair, Gundry, and Walker, what emerges is a comprehensive blueprint for potentially adding healthy years to our lives. First, respect your circadian rhythm. All three authors emphasize the importance of living in alignment with your body's natural timing systems. This means consistent sleep and wake times, eating primarily during daylight hours, and getting morning sunlight exposure to set your internal clock. Second, practice time-restricted eating. Sinclair and Gundry both recommend limiting your daily eating window to approximately 8–10 hours, allowing for a 14–16 hour overnight fast. Walker adds that consuming your last meal at least 3 hours before bedtime improves sleep quality, which further enhances longevity. Third, prioritize nutritional diversity. Gundry emphasizes polyphenol-rich foods that feed beneficial gut bacteria. Sinclair highlights plant compounds like resveratrol that activate sirtuins. A diet rich in colorful vegetables, fruits, olive oil, nuts, and seeds addresses both recommendations while providing the nutrients needed for quality sleep that Walker emphasizes. Fourth, incorporate hormetic stressors. All three authors acknowledge the benefits of mild, intermittent stress. This might include exercising to temporary fatigue, practicing occasional longer fasts, or exposure to heat, sauna, and cold plunges. These stressors activate survival pathways that enhance cellular maintenance and repair. Fifth, minimize exposure to aging accelerators. All three identify overlapping factors that speed aging: excess sugar consumption, ultra-processed foods, environmental toxins, chronic psychological stress, and disrupted sleep. Addressing these factors may be just as important as adding positive interventions. Sixth, maintain strong social connections. Though emphasized most strongly by Gundry, all three authors acknowledge the profound impact of positive social relationships on longevity. The world's longest-lived populations invariably feature strong community bonds and multi-generational social structures. Seventh, cultivate purpose. Having meaningful work or projects that provide a sense of contribution appears to activate longevity pathways. Whether through career, creative pursuits, volunteer work, or family roles, purpose seems to program our biology for extended health span. Eighth, consider targeted supplementation. While all three authors emphasize food first, they acknowledge potential benefits from specific supplements. Sinclair discusses NMN and resveratrol for supporting NAD+ levels. Gundry suggests certain polyphenols and postbiotics. Walker notes that magnesium can improve sleep quality in deficient individuals. Finally, monitor your biomarkers. Rather than focusing solely on chronological age, track indicators of biological age like inflammatory markers, glucose response, gut health, cardiovascular function, and sleep quality. These provide actionable feedback on how your lifestyle is influencing your aging trajectory. What's remarkable about this convergent blueprint is its synergistic nature. Implementing any one of these practices delivers benefits, but together they create a comprehensive system that addresses aging at multiple biological levels simultaneously. Part 7. Controversies and limitations. While the convergent theories from Sinclair, Gundry, and Walker create a compelling framework for understanding aging, it's important to acknowledge the controversies and limitations in this emerging field. First, much of the research on anti-aging interventions comes from animal studies, particularly using mice and other short-lived species. While these provide valuable insights, we must be cautious about extrapolating directly to humans, who have much longer lifespans and more complex biology. Second, there's significant genetic variation in how individuals respond to longevity interventions. What works spectacularly for one person may have minimal effects for another. This genetic heterogeneity complicates one-size-fits-all recommendations. Third, Sinclair's focus on NAD+ precursors and sirtuin activators remains controversial among some researchers. While animal studies show promise, human clinical trials are still limited, and some scientists question whether boosting NAD+ will translate to meaningful lifespan extension in humans. Fourth, Gundry's emphasis on lectins as potential dietary villains has been criticized by mainstream nutrition researchers. Many point out that traditional diets of long-lived populations often include lectin-containing foods like beans and whole grains. The dose, preparation methods, and individual sensitivity likely matter significantly. Fifth, while Walker's research on sleep is robust, practical implementation of optimal sleep recommendations proves challenging in modern society. Shift work, parenting, economic pressures, and technology all create barriers to ideal sleep that can't be easily dismissed. Sixth, there's legitimate debate about the maximum possible human lifespan. Some researchers suggest an upper limit around 120,125 years due to fundamental constraints in our biology. Others, including Sinclair, argue that with sufficient scientific advancement, these barriers might be overcome. Seventh, significant ethical questions emerge with radical life extension. Would longer lives exacerbate inequality? How would society adapt to multiple generations remaining in the workforce? Would environmental sustainability become even more challenging? Finally, we must consider the commercial interests at play. The longevity market represents a potential multi-trillion-dollar industry, creating incentives to overpromise and market products before evidence fully supports their efficacy. Despite these limitations, the convergent theories from these three books represent our best understanding of aging biology today. While specific recommendations may evolve as research advances, the fundamental insights about epigenetic regulation, gut microbiome function, and sleep's restorative power provide a solid foundation for enhancing health span. Part 8. The future of longevity research. As we look to the horizon of longevity science, several emerging research areas suggest even more profound developments ahead. Cellular reprogramming technologies, building on Sinclair's work, are advancing rapidly. Companies like Altos Labs, backed by billions in funding, are developing ways to rejuvenate cells by temporarily activating Yamanaka factors. If successful, these approaches could potentially reverse age-related cellular damage throughout the body. The gut microbiome research Gundry highlights continues to expand. Scientists are now developing next-generation probiotics, precisely engineered bacterial strains designed to perform specific health-promoting functions. Future treatments might involve personalized microbiome analysis and tailored interventions that address your unique bacterial ecosystem. Sleep science is being revolutionized by new measurement technologies. Advanced wearables can now track not just duration but the quality and stages of sleep with increasing accuracy. This data, combined with AI analysis, could allow for personalized sleep optimization beyond Walker's general recommendations. Senolytic therapies, drugs that selectively eliminate senescent, zombie cells that accumulate with age, are progressing through clinical trials. These interventions target a fundamental aging mechanism that complements the pathways described by our three authors. Epigenetic clocks, which measure biological age based on DNA methylation patterns, are becoming increasingly sophisticated. These tools may soon provide precise feedback on how lifestyle interventions affect your aging trajectory at the molecular level. CRISPR and other gene editing technologies raise the possibility of more direct genetic interventions to extend lifespan. While ethically complex, the ability to modify genes associated with accelerated aging or activate longevity pathways could transform our approach to age-related diseases. Artificial intelligence is accelerating drug discovery for longevity compounds. Systems that can analyze billions of molecular interactions are identifying new candidates that might slow or reverse aspects of aging, potentially making age reversal therapies more accessible. Most encouragingly, we're seeing unprecedented collaboration across scientific disciplines. Geneticists, microbiologists, neurologists, endocrinologists, and other specialists are increasingly working together to understand aging as an integrated biological phenomenon, precisely the approach modeled by connecting Sinclair, Gundry, and Walker's work. On conclusion, we began by asking whether aging might be optional rather than inevitable. After exploring these three complementary perspectives, the answer appears increasingly to be yes, or at least, the biological decline we associate with aging could be substantially delayed. Sinclair shows us that aging stems largely from epigenetic information loss, a potentially reversible process. Gundry reveals how our microbial partners influence virtually every aspect of our health and aging trajectory. Walker demonstrates that quality sleep provides the foundation for cellular repair and restoration essential for longevity. Together, these insights create a new paradigm. Aging is not a simple wearing out of parts but a complex biological process influenced by our environment, behavior, and biology. This paradigm shift opens unprecedented possibilities for extending not just lifespan but healthspan, the period of life spent in good health. The practical blueprint that emerges from these convergent theories offers actionable steps anyone can implement, regardless of age. While we await further scientific breakthroughs, these evidence-based approaches represent our best current understanding of how to slow biological aging. Perhaps most profound is the philosophical transformation these works inspire. Rather than accepting decline as inevitable, we can approach aging as a challenge to be addressed, a frontier of human potential yet to be fully explored. As you consider these ideas, I encourage you to approach them with both curiosity and personal relevance. Which of these insights resonates most with your own experience? Which practices might you incorporate into your life? How might extending your health span change your perspective on what's possible in your lifetime? The biology of longevity isn't just about adding years to life, but life to years. And that possibility, of extended vitality, wisdom, and contribution, might be the most profound revolution of all. Thank you for joining me on this exploration of the biology of longevity. If you found value in this convergence of ideas, please share this video with others who might benefit. Until next time, here's to your long, healthy, and purposeful life.